And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters. Wednesday, March 25th. I'm Dino Bidala. As always, here to be your MBFF. I'm the neediest Muslim guy you'll meet. On Twitter at Dino Bidala. So, coming to you still live in the world of social distancing where I live in New York. And it's going to continue here, and it should continue here for an extended period. We have no idea when, but we know that Donald Trump yesterday was saying he wants it all to end by Easter in a couple of weeks. And that he wants to reopen America. And, you know, we talked about it yesterday. Now Donald Trump, just a short time ago, tweeted more here. And here he makes it very clear what's going on. This is about Donald Trump's reelection. Your lives don't matter. He tweeted a short time ago, the lamestream media is the dominant force in trying to keep our country closed as long as possible in the hope that it will detrimental to my election success. The real people want to get back to work as soon as possible. We'll be stronger than ever before. So anybody who is with your family, your social distancing, you're not the real people. He doesn't care about you. That's the blunt reality. Donald Trump has never cared about anyone but himself and his base sometimes. It's not the media saying, don't go back to work, don't end social distancing. It's these people called doctors. Maybe you heard of them. In fact, here is the Director General of the World Health Organization today, Dr. Tedros, not responding to Trump per se, but clearly maybe that's part of it, about the social distancing efforts and when it should end. And if you do end it too soon, what happens? Here's clip number 1, please. The reality is here, if Donald Trump were to convince governors to go against doctors, reopen their states, and then there's another outbreak, then everything happens again. It all closes down again. The stock market collapses again. Who would want that? That makes no sense. Donald Trump, and what's really despicable about this tweet, over the last few days, you see it. I even had a Trump supporter call last night doing all the Trump things. You know, it's just like the flu and that kind of stuff. Trump is making life and death a partisan issue. He wants you not to believe doctors, not to believe scientists, to believe one person. And that person is Donald J. Trump. And the bottom line here is, and let's be really blunt about this, Donald Trump will sacrifice you. He will sacrifice your family. He will sacrifice your children, your grandchildren, your grandmother, your brother, your father, all to help him get reelected. And because his view of the stock market doesn't go up, he doesn't win reelection. So he wants to rush and reopen Chipotle in the Cheesecake Factory so that the bottom line of these companies goes up, stock market goes up, GOP donors give him the money he needs to run for reelection. This is all about Donald Trump. And here's the irony in all of this. The irony is the reason we're doing extreme social distancing here is because Donald Trump failed us early on. If Donald Trump had done the right job early on, we would not be here. It's that blunt. From getting rid of pandemic unit that was part of the National Security Council to not funding the USAID program called PREDICT, which had to do specifically with examining and surveillance of pandemic or viruses that jumped from animals to humans. Got rid of that last year. Was warned this could happen. Didn't care. Didn't want to use the money there. Why? He wanted money for his wall, folks. Use the money for his wall, not for us. To have a campaign promise, another applause break. Here are the facts. January 20th, the first case in U.S. history on our soil. January 20th, also the first case on South Korea soil. So remember, South Korea is a nation of over 50 million people. It's not a teeny nation. What's the result now? South Korea did mass testing instantly and quarantines. What happened? Compared to us, Trump didn't do mass testing. I just heard the mayor of Atlanta on minutes ago on MSNBC saying we can only test a few hundred people a day. We can't do mass testing. This administration still has not provided the city of Atlanta in Georgia with the necessary tools to do mass testing. So what happened? South Korea did the mass testing. We haven't. Delayed, just started happening now. South Korea, as of today, 9,100 cases, approximately 100 people dead. What does America have? As of today, short time ago, over 62,000 infected people with nearly 900 dead and rising. There'll be over 1,000 by tomorrow and continue. And I live in New York. I live now in the epicenter. This is ground zero for the virus. It really was Washington State at one point. Now it's shifted here. Governor Cuomo again on TV today telling us we have now over 30,000 cases in New York alone. We have 3 times as many cases in New York than they have in the entire country of South Korea. And a lot of that is because we didn't have the testing capability. We're a city of 8 million. We have 3 times as much of a country as South Korea because the Trump administration failed us. They didn't give us the testing kits we needed. The result is now we're scrambling. At the press conference today, Governor Cuomo mentioned now over 285 people dead. This was interesting. Almost half of New York City's coronavirus victims, so far not dead, I mean who've gotten sick, are under 45, folks. Almost half of all those who've gotten the coronavirus in New York are under 45. But the overwhelming majority of those people have just minor to medium, not serious responses. And I want to play a clip. Here's Governor Cuomo today quoting his dad. And you follow politics for a long time. You know who Governor Mario Cuomo was. Cuomo was the father of Andrew and Chris Cuomo on CNN. And Governor Mario Cuomo in his day was an amazing orator. He was someone who people wanted to run for president. And here he is, just in human terms, the kind of compassion and empathy you want in a leader in a difficult time. Here's clip number 2, please. I love those words by Governor Cuomo quoting his dad, the sense of community. And, you know, I've been saying this now for over a week. We are a community as well, in that you're not alone. We are in this together. And literally, we are experiencing a pandemic that we've never seen. No one, unless you were alive in 1918 during the Spanish flu pandemic, has seen this. And we are together, a community experiencing this. And we are here for each other, especially on a Sirius XM family. It doesn't matter your political views. We're in this together. And email me, at the very least, if you have questions, concerns, dean@deanofradio.com. Call on the show. Be a part of this family in this community. There was some good news from Governor Cuomo today. The hospitalization rate in New York is not doubling as quickly as it was. On Sunday, it was doubling every 2 days. Yesterday, doubling every 3 days. Today, hospitalization doubling every 4 days, they're projecting out. That is very good. Here's the bad news. We have a shortage of ventilators, and the need for them is growing. And I want to play a clip from Dr. Emily Porter. She's the sister of Congresswoman Katie Porter, who explains what these ventilators are, and on a national level, talks about projections from the CDC, how many people, and these projections are right now. If you're in a place and you don't have a big outbreak, you may never have it. I hope you don't. But we're not over the curve. We are going up that ladder. And here's Emily Porter about how many ventilators this nation is going to need based on the CDC's projections. And what do we really have? So here's clip number 3, please. There's a doctor giving the numbers. That was CDC estimates about how many will get infected, how many will need intensive care, and how many ventilators you need. If this continues on the trajectory it's going, we're going to get to that point where in Italy, they are picking and choosing who's going to live and who's going to die. And what they're doing is if you're older and have underlying conditions, of course, they're giving you an IV, but they're leaving you there with no ventilator, and you die. And if somehow you're lucky and you survive, so be it. That's where we're heading. And, Governor Cuomo today, and here's some bad news, we learned that in New York City, the morgues are at capacity. I want to repeat that. In New York City, our morgues are at capacity. That's how many people have died here, that it goes beyond what's expected. So they don't have the capacity for the morgues right now. I live in New York. No one here wants to contract COVID-19. No one listening wants to contract it. But in New York, here's the difference. If I'm going to get infected, I hope it's in the next few days. Before we run out of ventilators, before we run out of hospital beds and medicine, because your chances of survival are going to drop by the day living in this city. And I can't believe in 2020, in the United States of America, that's where we are. But this is where we are, America. This is the country that we live in now. And whatever vision you have of this country being the greatest nation in the world, that's fine. Put that aside. Let's talk about the reality. We are facing a scenario where, as Dr. Porter said, if the projections are right, 1 out of 50 without ventilators being made and manufactured who go to the ICU, it's 1 out of 50 who go to the ICU will die. And for the rest of the country, here's the hard truth for all of you. What we're going on in New York, this is your future. Your future, especially if you live in a city. Look at Atlanta right now. The mayor was just on. They have 1,250 cases. They have far more, she said, because they can't do the testing because the federal government is still, to this day, March 25th, not giving them the testing kits they need. Their ICU beds in Atlanta, a major city, are full. That's barely getting press. She was just on MSNBC making that point. And here's Governor Cuomo yesterday about his point about we are your future. Look at us as the test case and the canary in the coal mine to help yourselves by giving us the resources and the expertise so that we can deal with it and bring those numbers of mortality down so then we can go to the next city like Atlanta and Chicago and Miami and Omaha and California cities, New Mexico, and the list goes on. So here is Governor Cuomo from yesterday. Clip number 4, please. And Governor Cuomo reiterated that today. The idea of we can create a roadmap here in New York with getting all the resources, the technology, the expertise here, because we are the epicenter. We have about 7% of the world's coronavirus cases are now in this state, New York, where I live, and mostly in this city that I live, New York City. And by setting up our own system here with this expertise, it can be exported out to other cities and other communities that go through this. And Governor Cuomo was pleading with the Trump administration for weeks to use the Defense Production Act to address the shortfall in ventilators especially. I mean, as the governor said today, we have the medical supplies now and the masks they need in New York hospitals this week. But next week, we don't know. But the Defense Production Act allows Trump and any president to expedite and expand the supply of resources by telling companies who make these equipment that you have to make it for us first, or secondly, essentially commandeering companies that make goods and telling them, you've got to make this for the good of this country now. It's not free, they get paid. You don't run their company, you work with them, but this is how it works. We're in an emergency. This is war. This is a war against the virus. But instead of using the Defense Production Act, Donald Trump has rebuffed it over and over and over. Yesterday, in response to Governor Cuomo's plea for 30,000 ventilators, that's what we need, he delivered 400. 400. And Governor Cuomo said, what am I going to do with 400 ventilators when I need 30,000? Adding, you picked the 26,000 people who are going to die because you only gave us 400 ventilators. Now, thankfully, he did that because a short time later, Mike Pence said, we're giving you 4,000 more ventilators in the next few days. Still far short. Trump needs to use all the powers at his disposal. The Defense Production Act is the key thing. Now, yesterday, they were getting so much pressure. The FEMA director goes, we're now using the Defense Production Act, but not for ventilators, for test kits. And by the end of the day, they quietly walked that back. So the press stopped talking about it. So now we're back to, why won't you use the Defense Production Act, Donald Trump? It's not just Cuomo calling for it. The American Hospital Association, the American Medical Association, the American Nurse Association sent a letter to Trump saying we have dwindling supplies of necessary medical equipment. You even had Republican governors today and Ted Cruz saying to invoke the full powers Defense Production Act, saying, I don't want to see doctors having to make a choice of who gets to live and who gets to die because they don't have the equipment to save lives. And beyond the Defense Production Act, Governor Cuomo is begging Donald Trump to nationalize the purchase of medical supplies. Why? Because the governor of New York is now competing with the governor of Illinois, is competing with the governor of Georgia, is competing with the governor of California, bidding the prices up. They're gouging the prices. And here's Governor Cuomo on that very issue. Let's jump down to clip number 6, please. And they get paid handsomely for it. It's not free. Yet Donald Trump, who can't stop lying in the middle of an epidemic where people are dying, he just cannot stop lying because that's his nature. Ask Sunday, why won't you use the Defense Production Act? And this is his answer. Let's hear clip number 7. That's a lie. The Defense Production Act, passed in 1950, used by Democratic and Republican presidents, is not taking anyone's company. It's not turning it into socialism. It's simply, in a time of national emergency, ensuring we have the supplies, be it a war against an enemy foreign or a war against the virus, which is taking American lives every single day, every single minute. But Trump won't do it. Why? It has nothing to do with that. As the New York Times reported, Donald Trump has been lobbied by corporate interests not to do it. They don't want it. The Chamber of Commerce, they went to him and said, don't do it. And corporate executives said, don't do it. Because everything with Trump comes back to the same thing. Business, business, business. Profits over people. You are expendable. Your life is expendable. Your family is expendable. If Donald Trump can make sure the stock market keeps going up, so that his GOP donors still have the money they need to give him a donation. You know, Donald Trump says he's a wartime president. He plays a wartime president on cable news. He's not a wartime president. If he was, he would act like one. He would use the Defense Production Act. He would not play games. He wouldn't lie to the American people saying, the media wants to close down America to help me lose an election, just like he called this whole risk a hoax, the new Democrats' new hoax on February 28th. Look where we are now. Look where we are now. That guy lied to you on February 28th. February 26th, he said, we have 15 cases and we're going to 0. We have over 60,000 cases. This man is a dangerous liar. I had Glenn Kirshner on later, a former federal prosecutor. We're going to analyze, can Donald Trump be charged with manslaughter for lying, knowingly lying to the American people, telling them there's no risk, and they go back to work and they die. And I hope we find a way that he can be charged. And he'll be charged in New York State, where we have the most deaths in the country. And the DOJ regulations won't matter. He will be charged and tried and go to prison. That's where he belongs. This is not politics. This is life and death. So this is where we stand today. During this show, Americans will die. That's how quick it's happening now. During this show, we'll find out about more and more people who've been infected. More people in the ICU. More people fighting for their life on a ventilator. As the morgue in New York City hits capacity, the ICU units in Atlanta are at capacity, and it continuing. And Donald Trump tweeting a short time ago, and I'll tell you, he's had so many tweets, but this, again, one of the most despicable. The lamestream media is trying to force me to keep our country closed to hurt my election. He's trying to make this partisan. He wants his base to go, I don't care about the risk. Who cares? Donald Trump said it's fine. I never thought I would see an American president mislead the American people like this on a daily basis. Yes, George Bush lied to America about weapons of mass destruction. Did he or did he not know it was true or not? It's hard to say. But Donald Trump knows the doctor's saying don't do this, and he doesn't care. Donald Trump cares about Donald Trump. That's all. And that's where we stand today in America on March 24th. With a president in the middle of a life and death epidemic whose only concern is getting reelected and sacrificing your family's lives to do that. What do you think? I'd love to hear from you. 866-997-4748. What's your reaction to hear about a president who doesn't care about American lives as long as it helps the bottom line of corporations and his GOP donor elite class? Let's take a break and come back and talk to you to the top of the hour right here after this.